Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 231, The Mystic Dream Book. It's from the 1880s, so it's, definitely on the old side. 138 pages, so it's full length. It is a very elaborate work of dream interpretation. I had some problems getting it actually upped, because Amazon twice inquired about, the author's date of death and stuff. Hartranft, he was a Pennsylvania native, wrote a bunch of stuff like on trains and what was it? He wrote some medicinal works, I think, too. Decent core of literature. Anyway, link in the description to my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books, blogs. I haven't made the blog update yet for it because I wanted to get this video out of the way. I got some outdoor work to do today in the garden. Preparing for my trip, of course. Got to fertilize and hyper water everything beforehand, make sure that it's all taken care of before I depart. Anyway, this particular work is just dream interpretation. Some of the fortune-telling works like this, they roll it up with other things, so they'll truncate the dream interpretation, slap an oracle and maybe some astrology and call it a day. This one is entirely dream interpretation. In fact, what they call a preface is 20 pages of more explicit stuff, and it goes through like dreaming of certain things for different employment. So like, this is what this dream means for a farmer, that's what it means for a clerk, and this is what it means for a carpenter and stuff like that. By the way, the list of activities people employed in, very much different from what you would see today. Because a lot of those jobs, either like cobbler, there aren't many cobblers in the world, a shoemaker, a seamstress, and stuff like that. This one is more bi-gendered than most of them. A lot of these dream interpretation works, the older ones, the audience reading them primarily would have been male, because males tended to be more literate. But by this time, we're talking, 30 years into the Industrial Revolution, women are joining the literate workforce in larger numbers, the middle class especially, and literacy has gone from being primarily the upper class in the 1700s to extending to this new working class as well, at least to some degree. So the literary audience was far more vast, and so 100 years before, a lot of these works would talk about things, and it would really apply to the intelligentsia, the upper crust, like the life of leisure sort of people that manage a plantation or something. Now, though, all of a sudden you have it geared towards even the lower classes for the first time in many cases. It's very interesting. It's similar dream interpretation stylistically to a lot of other works of the era, which is there's a lot of inversion, like marriage means death, death means marriage, with the exception of things that at the time were universally agreed upon to be negative, like toads, snakes, and stuff like that. For the most part, it was very much a tale of inversion. That is, a storm means calm is coming. Dreaming of loss is good for most people, unless it was to someone who's very poor already. I mean very rich. For a rich man to dream of his riches is a bad idea, essentially. And it's partially subconscious analysis, but really it's more mystic at this point. It isn't until the early 20th century that it takes on the more subconscious psychological aspect, dream interpretation, that is, within the occult. Again, this is the best dream interpretation work I've read. It's the most complete. It's the longest. As opposed to some of the works of 30 or 40 pages, it's of dense material, but it's got an oracle, other prognostication, astrology usually. This one omits all of the other things and is just dream interpretation. So if you're interested in that, definitely this is the work to get. I'm fascinated by fortune telling and oracles, dreams, divination of various kinds. I find that to be, other than herbalism, I find it to be the most fascinating subject within the broad scope of the occult. If you're interested in that, this would be the work. Definitely highly recommended. For general prognostication, it's still Napoleon's Oraculum, but this would be a close second to that and focuses very much more on dreams and the impact thereof. You can take it or leave it as far as your belief in what the dreams represent, but at the very least, it's good. By the way, this was such a labor of love work. Again, not just with Amazon rejecting the files twice because of me needing to elaborate, hey, this is a work, this work's almost 150 years old. It can't be copyrighted, even if the author were cryogenically frozen. That's number one. But also, the initial work was so woefully out of order. Within the sections for the letters, it wasn't alphabetical. There were, like, at the end of the work, for some reason, pigeons was listed a second time, for example, and right at the end, like in the X section or something. And it just didn't make any sense, so I had to go through entry by entry and re-alphabetize everything in order to make it actually, logically a flowing work. There were some grammatical errors as well. By the way, some terms not fully modern. For instance, abortion in this work has nothing to do with abortion post Roe v. Wade. It has to do with like to suddenly end something, like to abort a procedure, to abort a job, or to abort a situation. That's what it means. This happens with some other things as well, where terms are used that are kind of antiquated. But it's interesting. I wanted to leave them intact as is, as much as possible. I did redact the redundant passages, because like with pigeons, the second one actually compared to the first gives a totally different meaning, and I don't exactly know why it was doubled. Didn't make any sense. By the way, really quickly, at the end it mentions Thomas Jefferson's Book of Fate or something like that. I couldn't find any info on it, and it sounds like almost like the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, which is really, it's one of the most popular things that I've edited. By the way, you should get a copy of that too. It's quite good. I can't find anything on it. If you have a copy lying in your attic of this apparently late 1800s era book, definitely you need to immediately consult somebody who's skilled in the preservation of books. Then you should probably consult me as well, because I'd probably pay quite well for such a volume. Be the only one with an edition of it. That sort of thing is like lifeblood to me. But again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books blogs. Definitely highly recommended. I'll be adding it to the fortune section later, the divination section. That's about all. Peace out.